Welcome to Left of Left, a progressive podcast fighting hate in America today. My name's Mark, and I'm here with
King David.
What we're going to discuss on this podcast / YouTube channel is left ideologies and more progressive way of thinking. You know, today there's a lot of hate on the internet and toxic, especially on YouTube and platforms such as Facebook. So we wanted to create a more progressive look at like just everything that's going on in the news today, have a platform to talk about left ideologies and progressive thinking ideas such as democratic socialism, and further left of the DNC, you know, the Democrats where they are today is basically centrist, and like the true left are these progressives like Bernie Sanders and AOC and other free thinking people that care about subjects such as healthcare, Medicare for all, free college, stuff like that, that just seems like any rational person would want, but for some reason in today's climate are usually fought with hostile words and violence. Any thoughts about that, David?
Yeah, we have just so much right-wing garbage out there, like people that are fighting against their own best interests, whether or not, you know, like a Medicare for all system would work is not the issue here. It's that insurance premiums and the cost of healthcare continue to increase at incredibly high levels. You have people rationing their insulin, dying from diabetes. So a lot of the right-wing issue is that you guys want to keep doing the same thing, even though it's terrible. It doesn't work. So we want to give you some better ideas of what to follow versus what not to follow.
Yeah. And most of the time, what we're going to do is talk about the biggest stories in the news and then try to present them with our take, which, you know, it's kind of hard in this day and age because you have the mainstream media tends to, you know, side with the DNC, like even to a point where they don't really talk about issues such as, you know, climate change, or even give Bernie Sanders and other candidates like the time that they deserve. And they try to push, you know, what the party wants, which is right now Biden. That kind of stuff, you know, like not saying that like the news is fake, but they just have a bias, unlike, you know, something like Fox News, which is for the most part completely fake and just kind of like personalities and radio heads just talking about their viewpoints and pushing their propaganda type of thing.
Yeah, Fox just doesn't have ethical journalism. You know, you read articles on CNN too. CNN is, you know, not great, but generally they get their facts straight. At least it's not just emotional, it's actual reporting.
Right. They have a slant/bias, but they still report accurately, where Fox will try to spin whatever story is to fit the narrative, which I think is very destructive, especially as we know, like to everyone, you know, the recent climate has gotten a lot worse with Trump. This president has, you know, changed a lot of people's family dynamics, I think more so than anyone. You know, we used to always maybe be further left than our family members, but now it's kind of like you don't even know how to relate to certain family members because it's become so hateful and almost racist, and it's changed a lot. I know a lot of people don't talk to aunts or uncles or friends that they used to anymore because of the current climate, and just a lot of people think that's kind of sad. And I think that's sad that you obviously to lose connections, but at the same time it's just kind of like amplifying these kind of like negative thoughts that these people maybe had and never voiced. And Trump has given a platform for these people to open up with those viewpoints. And, you know, some people can be saved, but some ideologies are, it feels like are just so far gone. It's almost hard to talk to these type of people. Depends on the individual.
Yeah, I'm never gonna just stop talking to someone because they're conservative or they have different views from me. But when you have a president who doesn't condemn white supremacy and actively tries to avoid putting it on the terror list and like impedes the FBI with fighting white supremacy, yeah, I have no reason to have a civil conversation with you. You know, you're supporting being against me. You're supporting somewhat of a fascist thought process, and I can't can't be dealing with that. But if you're just conservative and you want to argue about like gun control or different public policy like taxes, that's not a reason to stop talking to someone.
Yeah, I always try to come at it at like a good place and discuss things before. Obviously, I wouldn't just like immediately shut someone down if they had different viewpoints from myself. But then if it becomes to the point where I feel that there's no like reasoning and they're just kind of like extremely toxic in their views, then I don't know. Sometimes I just don't want to deal with that anymore. I have a lower tolerance. I had more of a tolerance for it originally, but now, like you said, with like good people on both sides where like people are defending Nazis and white supremacists, it's very hard for me to engage with these people because the flawed ideology is like so far gone. If you can't see an issue with these things, I always try, but at a certain point, lately, I just feel like it's easier to kind of just block some of these people. Like I just don't want to, which sounds sad, but I just don't want to deal with this anymore. I've been dealing with it for, the past couple of years now. And it's just gotten to the point where now I'm just burnt out. It's just like, really, like you're defending Nazis. Where are we? Like, what year is this? It's bizarre.
Yeah, you think that Antifa are the real fascists. It's like they're the only thing that's really defending us. Antifa and other socially progressive organizations arguing against, oh no, Antifa broke a couple windows, or oh no, they punched a journalist that regularly spews lies and hangs around with white supremacists. Like I don't have much patience anymore.
Yeah, the media tries to spin anti-Tifa as in like almost a terrorist group, and clearly Trump and his party have been trying to classify them as such. But in the Antifa cases, there's only been a couple of extreme cases where they've, really, really hurt someone. Yes, they've caused some small like destruction, but comparatively to obviously white supremacists, Nazis, the KKK, they're not killing people. They're not taking a car and running down multiple people. That whole incident was extremely crazy as well because Antifa wasn't in that situation, even breaking anything or rioting. Like they were doing a protest against Nazis and white supremacists. They were there protesting that. It wasn't a one-to-one. It wasn't very fine people on both sides. It was literally racists and then people standing up against white nationalists, KKK, Nazis, and racism. And people died doing that. It's kind of crazy to me that people equate these two as the same thing. One group just doesn't like fascism and racism, and they're actively fighting against that. Yes, sometimes with violence, but you can't fight people who their whole ideology is, I want genocide. Like by default, Nazis are violent. Like, so it's not just like, oh, America, freedom of speech. It's like when the ideology wants the genocide of entire races of people, you can't fight that with just sadly words. That's what happened, this is what happened in World War II. Like it's a different type of fascism. Like it's like freedom of speech only goes so far. Like we should all be able to have, discussions, but when your discussion is like harms other people, like in the sense of like a pedophile or a racist, where it's like, I want to kill all black people. That's not an ideology that is just like okay to have, unfortunately. And shouldn't fall under the freedom of speech. Whenever you mention to Republicans like pedophiles, they're always against that for some reason. But then when you mention, oh, this guy doesn't like black people, he wants to kill all black people, they don't care. It's such a weird thing for me where it's just like you don't see that those are both heinous things to be. Those types of ideologies should be, you can't openly threaten someone. If I was to go to a bar and be like, I'm a serial killer, I want to kill everyone here, like you can go to jail for just intent. And when you believe in some of these ideologies, the intent's already there. Like if you hate people based on their religion, color, sexuality, and depending how far, you could be religious, be like, I'm against, gay marriage. That's different than I want to kill anyone that's gay. In extreme cases of these things, Antifa is there to fight against these hateful viewpoints and stuff like that. And yes, of course, that's going to break down the violence because these people are inherently violent. Antifa is not inciting this. Like they're there to protest it. And then fight that, propaganda and hate.
If your racist uncle is talking about some of these ideologies, the whole thing is to squash this hatred. It really just isn't productive for us to even have a conversation about that. So I've either removed people on Facebook or stopped following them, or said, I don't really want to associate with someone who's got these views that are full of hatred. The left is really fighting for equality for all, while the far right is fighting for white supremacy. And so it's okay to not associate with these people, or if you have a family member that is just that awful where you just don't feel like you can have a conversation with them, you can, absolutely stop talking to them. And obviously, I would try to have a conversation with a family member at first, but if they're that bad, if they're that openly racist or indoctrinated or drinking the Fox News Kool-Aid, you don't communicate with them anymore.
So that was kind of like a long introduction, but that brings us to, we're going to start getting into some bigger news stories that happened in the past week. The big thing that I guess that we should talk about, which isn't actually left news, but it affects all of us, is that one of the Koch brothers died at 79. It was David, the younger brother. Charles is still alive. He's the older one. For decades, these two, did long efforts to roll back like environmental and business regulations because they were motivated by greed. A lot of the far left progressives have almost cheered this death. To some seems kind of morbid, but the Koch brothers have probably killed millions and millions and billions of people based on their evil greed and money and everything that they've done. They've poured millions and billions into American politics, for the right agenda. They've done this for decades, and, they're responsible for just a lot of heinous shit.
The Koch brothers have been doing this for years. They founded a number of right-wing or kind of libertarian organizations like the Ayn Rand Institute or the Cato Institute, and they've just been, basically corrupting our politics for years. They've funneled so much money to senators and other elected officials that have given the right a pretty unfair advantage in making people fight against their own values, which is probably the most dangerous thing they've done. These think tanks that are considered nonprofits, it's like, they're funneling, millions and billions of dollars into these, quote unquote nonprofits that is really affecting American politics and really screwing the American people.
Yeah, they're nonprofit groups like Citizens for a Sound of Economy and all these they basically just push their agenda and stuff, and they're just giant think tanks. And it's crazy. During the Obama era, they were really against his regulations on emissions and stuff in the ozone and climate stuff, because clearly they're big business and they want to make as much profit as possible. They have a lot of money in oil. I think that's primarily, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's primarily how they are rich, right? Is all their money in oil?
No, it's some in oil, but then it's also disposable cups, like Dixie. They make toilet paper towels. Koch Industries owns lots of these little companies that you and I probably buy every day. As much as I'd like to boycott the Koch brothers, I don't even know what's some of their products are. They literally have so many different products they make. You can't.
Well, they're two of the richest people in the world. We know that. I think they're the 11th richest people in the world. So yeah, their power and wealth extends. It's nuts, and they've definitely used most of that for a massive operation to influence American politics. That's definitely something that they've done since Reagan and everything. They've been doing this for years. They seem it's not their religion, it's not it's always greed and money. It's always just their business, and just at the end is just less regulations and less caring about the worker. That's the whole Republican secret agenda, is just caring about big business and corporations and stuff. They try to, rope in the smaller like Tea Party people with extreme religious ideology, but what they really care about in the end of the day is just profit. And that's always what they care about, is profit. And they could trick these people in fighting against their own best interests. And that's what that's what they've done. But anyway, one of them's dead. I don't know whether or not this will actually affect anything, because the other brother is still there. All the money's still there. The ideology of what they have and the think tanks they have are still there. So I don't think it will affect anything.
Yeah, it's so David is dead, but then Charles is still alive and kicking, though, he's 83 years old. You wonder how much longer he's going to be doing this. They're bad dudes. The problem is they're very intelligent. They know, they really have had a plan to manipulate politics for years and have thrown so much money into that. But that's the scariest thing. It's like, obviously Trump is not a smart dude. That's but a lot of these guys backing him are very intelligent. And the one thing people don't realize is that intelligence and bias can go hand in hand.
Yeah, but to move on from this subject, basically, like, the next thing I kind of want to talk about this subject is, do you think that the left kind of like making fun of this guy after he's dead is a bad thing? Like, Bernie recently at a rally actually was like, no need for to say that, because people were cheering the fact that he was dead, and Bernie was kind of like, let's not do it that way. Do you think that maybe we are being insensitive? This was a person, or no? What do you think?
He's been so incredibly damaging to American society, and our has manipulated and influenced so many of our political elections, from small, even local positions to federal positions. I can't feel sorry. I can understand, like, okay, well, he's he did some good things. I'm sure he did, and he donated millions of dollars to art projects or different, they're like humanitarian nonprofits, but a lot of that, the good he did just doesn't measure up to the bad. It's hard to say if you should cheer for someone who's recently passed away, even if they are such a bad person. But like, if Trump or Hitler died, I would be ecstatic. I would be cheering,
Right. I think that, like, I don't necessarily like agree with Bernie and kind of like the more sensitive left on this, and this might be like a little bit of an extreme view, but like, for background's sake, I am atheist. I don't believe he's going to a hell or a heaven, so I don't think then the afterlife he's going to be judged. So the only things we have to judge him on are what he did. And again, he influenced our politics and millions of people under his decision, especially like poverty, in the lower to middle class, have either suffered, died, be in prison based on his ideologies that he spread through these think tanks. Like, honestly, I think that him dying is a positive thing. Sorry to say if that offends anyone, but he was fucking evil. It's like you said, like, I consider him the same as anyone like Trump, Hitler, or anyone with these terrible ideologies. I mean, he doesn't like minorities. He doesn't like the poor. And through these politics, like, and his agenda, he did that. It's like, whether or not that was his main goal, again, it was probably for profit. I mean, the ends don't justify the means. And he influenced our politics and America, like, with regulation rules for years and years to come. And Trump and the Tea Party, even though the Koch brothers kind of like were like, oh, we don't really totally identify with the Tea Party. It's like, well, you still funded them and fueled that ideology. And like, you're the reason why the Tea Party and Trump exists, like, so basically my stance is kind of like, fuck him. he's dead. I don't care. And I think Bernie's just trying to be like, Bernie, in the end of the day, why I like Bernie a lot, is just being like a politician. Like, he's not worried about the progressives. He's worried about the people that haven't decided. So the people at his rally that are saying like, great, this guy's dead, cheering that, those are not the people he's trying to like, say, oh, you shouldn't do that. He's trying to do the people that he hasn't got to yet, or like maybe in the middle, and maybe just be like more sensitive or religious and whatever. And then he's saying like, don't do that. It makes us look bad because we want to get these other people and be inclusive. And I understand that reasoning, but as just from a realist standpoint, it's like, no, that guy was a piece of shit, and it's good. Sadly, it's a good thing he's dead.
That's a good move by Bernie, though. He really does need to appeal to the moderate or center left people, and even right wingers. But obviously, he's already got the progressive vote. Anyone who's progressive is going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Like, I mean, that's a done deal. But yeah,
he's the most. I mean, out of the candidates that we have right now, he's the farthest left. Like it's like that is, if you are progressive and you are far left, you're going to vote for Bernie. Like Warren and Yang also have like progressive ideas, but they're still not as left as Bernie. Like if you look at it overall and all his policies.
Yeah, Yang's like universal basic income has been tried to be implemented by a number of like right wing presidents. I think it was starting with Nixon, who tried to implement a form of that. And I like universal basic income, but Yang is like, he's in like my top 3. I like the guy. I like Warren a lot too, but Bernie is still number 1.
Yeah.
Wish he was a little younger, but
I'm in the same boat. I mean, it's crazy, but like if you listen to Bernie talk and you listen to Biden talk, like Biden like lately has been like rambling and not making any sense, and like keeps bringing up like historical facts that aren't historical facts. I think he was talking about the other day is like Obama getting assassinated. I mean, like he seems like he actually is like getting senile, where Bernie like still seems like sharp and has not said anything that like is like in the wrong. Bernie's on point. He is old though, but he's on point is what I mean.
Yeah, no, he's still sharp. You see him running and those memes like, oh, Bernie with the chair. He's active. He's still
he's doing that baseball the other day in the Field of Dreams. He was like doing baseball.
Yeah, I'm like, he's in good shape.
Yeah. So moving along, let's talk about what you wanted to talk about, David. Why don't you fill us in about your KKK rally?
I actually just read that today. There was one yesterday in Hillsborough, North Carolina. These were the actual Klan members. These are guys in the white hoods, and this wasn't just like some wannabe Nazis. These are like the real, white knights. So there's obviously the counter protesters like overwhelmingly outmatch them, but it's scary that they can come out into the open and really support those hated views. With Trump being in power and encouraging these people to incite violence, they're empowered from this. They're encouraged to be as bold as possible.
The right tries to always use the talking point that these groups have always existed, even during the Obama period, but we know for a fact, like using statistics, you can look up like the amount of hate crimes has gone up, the amount of anti-Semitic comments and just stuff happening in the country has gone up. I mean, these are proven facts, and the amount of like hate crimes has gone up. Like the right always is like, oh, this isn't Trump's fault. It's like Trump fuels these ideologies, and he definitely is a favorite of white nationalists, racists, and the KKK. Like whether or not you're still in denial about the fact that he is basically also racist and like is pushing this this propaganda and this ideology, if you still are against that thing, you have to at least admit he fuels it. Like we are in a definite increase of this, across the country, and there are statistics and facts to prove that with the amount of violence that have shot up, during his presidency versus Obama's. The only good thing to come out of this, which is like a small thing, is like, the protesters have risen up. The Antifas and the counter protesters of the KKK and racism has stood up. And a lot of times these far right groups, they go to these, meetings or whatever they are, rallies, and there's less of them than there are protesters, which is, it's good. It's like, it's a good thing that there's more people protesting Proud Boys than people going to meet up with Proud Boys. That kind of stuff is good.
Obviously, that's a good thing. And this KKK rally, I'm just looking at it, and it's like you have maybe 8 or 10 people, and I'm sure they're just overwhelmed with counter protesters. Same thing with the Proud Boys. Like, yeah, there's only a few of them. Portland's had a huge white supremacy problem over the years, and they go out into those liberal cities just to try and rile people up, and you're not going to get any more followers from the liberal standpoint, but you are gonna get some other creepy racist dudes that want to join the cause. And it's essentially like a recruitment tactic. You're saying, hey, they're letting us speak out in the open, you guys can come join us, we'll be racist, we'll say all these hateful things, we'll beat up minorities, it'll be great. And it's really dangerous to allow these people to spread those views.
Yeah, it is. And then the other thing with that and them going to these liberal cities is the far right things always, they try to incite violence, and then they use that as like propaganda to like be like, oh, look how violent the left is, I was just trying to talk to this guy. But it's like, again, when someone is yelling racial or homophobic or whatever slurs at you, it's like you can only tolerate that for so long before it probably turns violent, and they literally try to incite this type of stuff. And it's funny, like, there are these cases where these people, like, I know that there's a story where this one guy who's like an ex KKK member, he literally still tries to talk to KKK members and just try to brainwash them and talk to them. But all these times where you're part of these like super racist ideologies like white nationalists or KKK or white supremacists, there's so many cases of people just like, if you just think about it logically, just regretting that, like, because doing a hate crime or a decision where you like hurt someone or kill someone, it's like that stuff sticks with you for life, and you've ruined your life over a false ideology. Like that kid that is stupid and brainwashed and ran over those people, those victims are the ones he needs to go to jail for his whole life. But like, he's definitely regretting it now. He's like, oh my God, now the rest of my life I'm in prison. Was this the life that I wanted for myself? It's like, there's so many cases where people regret this type of ideology and regret this line of thinking. They're just like, there's not a lot of cases where it's like, oh, I was against Nazi or racism, and boy, do I regret that. It's like, that's not a thing, because those people are on the right side of history. And these people that like are not on the right side of history, that have these like fake ideologies, it's like, they should just look at other people that have left the cult or clan or, or the indoctrination that they had. Because if there's a pattern, it's just like, oh my gosh, why are there so many of these people that have changed or like regretted this or may, think this ruined their lives? There's not a lot of people trying to tell progressives like, oh yeah, you guys are going to ruin your life by fighting Nazis and, fascism. That's not an ideology that changes. It's always going to be a hateful thing that people, will always be like, well, I was in the right with that,
It always comes back to the Jews. Something about it. Jewish people have always been a scapegoat throughout history, and anti-Semitic attacks are still common. I definitely think that Trump is really inciting those attacks. And then he'll go, and say, oh, I'm thoughts and prayers, blah, blah,
until
blah.
mental health, video games, and all this stuff. It's like, no, it's just your ideology and your hatefulness, and like people
Marilyn Manson
blaming immigrants
and heavy metal, and
but it's always just these people hate immigrants, and they hate, the fear that Fox News and Trump has put in them is what's making them shoot up things like anti other religious and terrorists. It's all this like fake, like, conspiracy theory garbage that Trump and the right peddle that fuels this stuff. It's basically always fear, and the fear just repeats in these people's heads until they snap, and then they shoot up something. And we all, obviously, then the left goes, we need, stricter gun laws like these other countries that have changed after like one shooting. But no, we never do anything because the NRA has so much money in, the Republicans' pockets. Like a giant deciding fact. The difference between the right and the left is like the right is controlled by like, profits and greed, but like NRA has a huge influence with lobbyists as well over that. And then so on the left, though, it's like the centrist DNC have like a lot of money with Wall Street, oil, also a little bit of that, and lobbyists and stuff like that. But the far left progressive, like, we just want people to come first, like our health, our planet, and everything like that. This isn't a hippy dippy thing. It's like, literally climate change is real, and literally like the rainforest is on fire due to like a right fascist leader, and it's just like we have to do things right now, like otherwise in our lifetime we're going to be in trouble, and especially our kids are going to not have a great future if we don't change a lot of this quickly.
The Amazon has so much like untold resources that we could probably use, or like, don't quote me on this, but we've only discovered like half of all animal species out there. Places that are difficult to get to, like the Amazon or the depths of the ocean. Species, these animal creatures could have something really beneficial that we just haven't discovered yet, and we're sitting back killing them, not doing anything about it. Like the climate change is gonna really speed up the process of endangered or extinct animals, and
we're all connected, like it's like the food chain, and just like everything affects everything. It's like it's just this domino effect that you may not see it right now, but like it will eventually get around to us, and like people are just always so just like care about the now and their life at the moment, but like everything matters. The now, the future matters. And it's like to be like, I never understand like these people that like I don't know what it is, but like they only care about the profits in the present and stuff, and not people dying. And like I don't know, it's weird to me to be that greedy. I never understand that whole line of thought.
Yeah, I can't even bring myself to get like a luxury car or anything. I'm just like, why? My normal car works just fine. I've just never really liked luxurious things that much. I definitely appreciate, fast cars or rare things, but the value for me is not really there. Just never had much interest.
Well, I think once like obviously like blood diamonds or whatever, if it's hurting other people, I think if you have empathy, like you're less inclined to like those things. Like a car that's putting out like terrible emissions and stuff like that, it's not probably going to be something because that that's pretty crappy for you to have, So I think a lot of that just goes into being more, well-read and informed about these things. But yeah, I think that this is a good stopping point for this first episode. Definitely in the future, I think topics that we should discuss is gaming, I think is a big toxic thing. And then like you were saying, maybe obviously like I think 4chan and 8chan are also good topics to talk about, because a lot of the right ideology comes from those two sources. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this first episode of Left, and if you have any ideas, feel free to tweet to us at our Twitter is Left, and then I'll link it in the thing. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, and then leave a comment down below if you want us to discuss a certain subject or piece of news next week.
If there's anything you want us to look into or ask, why isn't this on the news? We'll happily oblige you on that one, and really try and spread a more positive platform versus these right-wing podcasts or news, because it seems like it's everywhere, and we don't want you to feel alone. There are plenty of us on the left. We just need more material out there.
YouTube is filled with right-wing commentators, and they're awful. The Ben Shapiro's and the Alex Jones types. But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and we will hopefully be back next week with new news.
All right, King David, over and out.